Big news and update from the Transformers Studio Series line has dropped today. Like a couple days ago when we discussed the SS-72 Cybertronian Bumblebee movie Starscream, we were going like, well, then what is SS-70 and what is SS-71? Well, we finally got that through the Instagram account of A Nerdy Dad, and it seems that we know now what those two are going to be. One of them we kind of expected, the other one is an exciting new revelation. So the first one is that of a Cybertronian Bumblebee from the Bumblebee movie, and no surprise, they took the Cliffjumper SS-64 Cybertronian Bumblebee movie Cliffjumper mold, gave it the Bumblebee movie head, so a brand new head and a redeco into the Bumblebee colors, and here we go. Not much really to say about it. It's the first scene of the movie with the background. Not much in terms of new revelations here. It is what it is, like I always say. But let's talk about SS-71 Dino. Now here's where things get really interesting, not only just in terms of a new toy that we're getting for our Transformers Studio Series line, but also just the history of this character and how he was getting released throughout the years. So Dino, aka Mirage, aka Enzo, aka whatever you want to call him, the Dark of the Moon character, has had a very difficult toy release history, primarily because of Michael Bay's love of fast cars and not really thinking about the licensing for toy lines and manufacturing afterwards. Dino is a Ferrari. And because he's a Ferrari, that makes things rather difficult when it comes to licensing and doing toys and stuff. If you're a Hot Wheels collector, if you're a guy who plays the Gran Turismo video games, you know how Ferrari just doesn't like to play ball with a lot of companies because they don't want their cars to be seen in a negative light in any way. And I guess, I don't know, like they just don't want to play ball with a lot of companies and stuff. So Michael Bay had his Ferrari car. It was put in the movie. Character was named Dino, named after Enzo Ferrari's son. That was that. And then Hasbro had to figure out, what are we going to do with this toy? You know, like, what are we going to do? How are we going to get toys of this? And literally during Dark of the Moon, during the heat of Dark of the Moon, we literally just kind of had two kind of Dino toys, and they didn't even call him Dino, just to kind of play it safe. Oh, we're gonna call him his prototype name Mirage, although he had a lot of other prototype names. I believe like one of them was Rush at one point, and even at one point there was rumors of him being Hot Rod or Rodimus. The first one was the Cyberverse Mirage, aka Dino toy, and they pretty much took that Legend scale Revenge of the Fallen Sideways, which is an Audi. And Audi is a German company owned by Volkswagen. So that's a whole other, different animal. And they just kind of repainted and said, okay, this is Mirage/Dino. And it was, people's stand-in Mirage/Dino in the Western world. And I mean, the closest thing that we even got to a more accurate Ferrari Dino was at the same time we had the RPM/Speedstars line going on. And what they did was they just took a mold, and they made it almost not Ferrari. It's like, okay, could we do the Ferrari 458 Italia, but change little things here and there, and because the plastic will be clear on it, it won't show all the fine details, so they can't sue us. And that was probably the closest we got to a Dino toy that kind of looked like his alt mode, although it didn't transform because it was part of that RPM Speedstar line, which was more like a Hot Wheels kind of line. And that was that, literally, for years. Then that we had, in the Japanese side of things, the Movie Advanced line came out, and the Movie Advanced line was like, hey, let's do some toys of characters that didn't get toys done proper. So we got like the Mountain Dew bot and all kinds of wacky stuff that came from that line, which I still to this day suggest people go out and get because it's such a wacky release. But in this line, what did we also get? We got a Autobot Dino, and it was called Autobot Dino. But much like its Cyberverse, well, I call it Cyberverse because that's what it was labeled, but much like its Legends counterpart from Dark of the Moon, unfortunately, it was just yet again another retool/repaint of Sideways, this time the Deluxe Class one. So what they did was they took the Revenge of the Fallen Deluxe Class Sideways, again an Audi, and they just retooled the hell out of it so that it had like a new head and new weapons on the side, so it matched more like Dino's, I don't know, I call them the Guyver elbow blades, you know, like anyone who's seen Guyver knows what I'm talking about. Like that's all they did really, but it's still the Audi R8 more or less. It's not a Ferrari Dino. And that was probably the best Dino toy you could have had in your display for years. And of course, in between all of that, we got the Tiny Turbo Changer Dino, which all they did was they took Tiny Turbo Changer movie hot rod from The Last Night, which is a Lamborghini, painted it all red, and now it's Dino apparently. So it, again, really, you know, the Tiny Turbo Changers, they're trying to make the best what they can with the limited molds they have. But that's the name of the game essentially, and that was it. That was it for this character, and now we have this revealed to us. And I swear, all we have is a picture right now of the robot mode and the background for the SS-71 background, cardboard background, which is that highway scene when they were fighting the dreads pretty much. And Dino had like his two hooks into them, and he was kind of like, you know, highway surfing, or how what's the parasailing, I guess, I don't know, something like that. But looking at this robot mode and going like, it looks like they got a not kind of Ferrari again. I could be wrong, because the only reason why I say they don't have the license is because if this was sculpted from the Ferrari and they really went out of their way to give that Ferrari look, the fenders, which are kind of resting on his shoulders here, and I hope I'm wrong, I hope the painting is just very bad and we see something better, but you should be able to see on Dino's Ferrari alt mode, and I'll tell you something, in Dark of the Moon, Dino's in that Ferrari alt mode way more than he is in robot mode. He has the two Ferrari emblems on both sides of his fenders in yellow. They're very bright and noticeable. They're not really present here. Maybe they didn't color them in. Maybe they didn't put them in. I'm looking at the front lights. They look like they could be, you know, the Ferrari's front lights, but it's very hard to say. It's a possibility that maybe they went kind of the movie Studio Series 86 Jazz route, where it's like, maybe we could make something that's just Ferrari enough, but not quite, and we could get away with it and we don't have to pay Ferrari. It's a possibility. Maybe there's some kind of contract that has long expired since. I mean, Dark of the Moon was 2010, 2011 when probably those contracts were signed. And I mean, we're already on a 10-year brink of that coming up. So who knows? Who knows what it could be? But either way, we're getting a Dino. It's a brand new deluxe mold, straight up from the ground up. It's the most accurate to how he looks in the movie up to this point in terms of what we got in terms of toys. So your display will find we have that proper Dino figure. Does it look 100% like the Ferrari alt mode? That is still to be determined. But, I mean, how many of us are going to display it like that anyways? But it would be nice to know if they got that Ferrari trademark. I'm going to assume they didn't. I'm going to assume that probably Hasbro just went just so much so that they don't have to pay, much like what they did with car robots back in the day. On the Japanese side, they had Mercedes stuff and they had like Lamborghini stuff, and when they brought it over here, if you just change the headlights just a bit and you just, you know, make these headlight look different just a bit, you don't have to pay Mercedes and you don't have to pay Dodge Viper, although that bit them in the butt later with Super Sideburn, but that's a whole other story. But yeah, this is interesting. It's exciting to see that they're at least tackling a character that's had a very difficult toy release throughout the years. So Dino is here. He finally has a decent toy. Hey, he's a red car. Red cars are always cool. And hopefully we'll get some more pictures in the near future. And this isn't the only piece of Transformer news today. It's a very busy Friday today, so expect some other news later today.